So I used a ton of paper scraps and some cover dies and ended up making 41 cards for the Smash Our Stash collaboration. Hey guys, it's Beth. Welcome. And for this month's Smash Our Stash collaboration, the theme is paper scraps. And this is a collaboration that I host monthly, and it's just about using up things that tend to be forgotten or hoarded in your stash. There are a list of other collaboration participants down in the description box below, so please be sure to check them out. But like I said, this month was paper scraps, and so I decided to do something a little bit different than what I normally do, and I decided to start with my cover dies. I have several, and so I pulled some out and got to cutting, and I actually used up a ton of scraps, and in some ways it was tedious because I was there, you know, with my big shot die cutting, but then in other ways it was easier because I didn't necessarily have to think about a layout. I didn't have to find a card sketch. I just kind of did a whole bunch of die cutting and then put them together. So one of the first ones that I used was this new one that I had from Pink and Maine, and I hadn't used it yet, and it's like a Sunburst die. It's called the Peppermint Cover Die, actually, but to me it kind of reminds me of a Sunburst. And so I decided to go with yellows. I had a bunch of yellow and orange scraps, so I pulled those out first to do this cover die. And it does cut a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch stitched rectangle, and so it covers the whole front of the card. But I used white as kind of my base, but then I also used a white cardstock. So I need to finish decorating a lot of the cards. I ran out of time because I was really just trying to get scraps used up, but I did decorate at least one of each, so you kind of see what I would do with it. This next one is one I got off of Amazon, and I only did one card because it wasn't cutting very well, and I don't know if it's my plates on my big shot or if it's the die that's not doing as well. But I just took kind of like a burlap pattern to do my frame, and then took some pinks to cut the middle of the star pattern and just kind of intermixed them, and then just took some scraps down here at the bottom, and then thinking of you. And I also need to still add scraps on the inside of my cards as well. This is from my favorite things. It's the Stitch Collage frame. And so I pulled out some of the bigger pieces I had to work with this one, just because, you know, these rectangles over here were a little bit bigger. And so this one I did a ton of cards with, and one of the reasons why I didn't get to some of my other dies because I spent a lot of time on this one. But I just went through and I pulled out some gray, white, and black cardstock to use as the frames, and it does do a stitch detail around the edge of the frame and through the grid. And then, like I said, went through and pulled the bigger pieces to use for these bigger rectangles, and then maybe some smaller strips that I had for the left side here. And then just kind of worked in an assembly. I went through and added all of the frames to the card bases, and then came in and went and added all the kind of grouped them together and kind of laid them out and figured out what colors might go well together. So I've decorated 2 of these, the card fronts. So this one I just did happy birthday. It was already stamped on a gray cardstock that matched, and then just added a little layered flower. This was a image I already had colored up in my stash, and just decided to add a welcome baby to that. I thought the colors kind of worked. The pinks worked. And then I just have a big variety. We'll just kind of flip through these. And I had other cover dies that I wanted to get to, but I've run out of time because I spent so much time on these, cutting these out. But it did use up a ton of scraps. And so I think I have like 25 of this particular. This one I ended up pulling in some white pieces because I saved the insides from when I cut out the frames, and so like I brought in some white, and so I can always put a sticker or some kind of embellishment here or a stamped image on those, but just kind of use some to fill in, because I actually took these camping with us and kind of put them together while I was camping. It was a good, easy camping project. So that's how those turned out, 25 of those. And then since I was running out of time, I also decided to use, there was some files in my Silhouette design studio that I thought would make good card fronts as well, kind of like the collage cover-ups. And so things that I could use, scraps for, like bigger scraps for the frames and smaller scraps for the insides maybe. So this is one, it cut the heart frame and then the insides. And so I went through and some of the bigger scraps that I had that would fit the size that I wanted my heart cluster to be. And then I also did some in white, so that way I would have some white frames. And so I kind of mixed and matched, like, so I would do a pattern frame and then like the white insides. And then this one was the white frame with the pattern inside. And just kind of, like I said, mixed and matched, but I kept all of the patterns the same. I just thought it looked cleaner. This one, these two I turned horizontal. And these I actually did get, I kind of knew what sentiments I wanted on these, so these went pretty quickly. And again, I still need to add stuff to the insides. And then this one was a fun one as well. So it was these 3 columns of the hexagons, and I just kind of took strips that I had and cut the columns out and then kind of mixed and matched them like on the card. So I just kind of alternated the colors on all of them. So I did get 2 of these fronts decorated, and then I still have 2 that I don't. So in total, I have 41 cards. I actually used some Silhouette files I had never used before, and I used some cover dies, which I hadn't used in a while. And I hadn't used this one all. This was a new one for me. So that was kind of a good exercise for me. Challenged me to use things that I don't necessarily go to. Like normally I just pull out my card sketches and go by what size of scraps I have. So this was kind of a fun exercise, and I did use up a ton of scraps. I feel like I actually made a dent in like my smaller scrap pieces, so that excites me as well. So again, be sure to check out the other participants linked below and see how they used scraps this month. I am always excited to see any new ways that you can use paper scraps, but hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for your time today, and hope you all have a very crafty day.